Hello, everyone, and welcome to a great episode of Tell Me Why, because all of us need to know how to manage our businesses, our group interactions, and our lives better so that we, just like the Beatles, can reach the toppermost of the poppermost. And the guest that I have for you this evening is going to help us achieve exactly that. He is a lawyer, former lawyer for 32 years. He was the CEO of Absher Construction. And as he started working in a business arena, as well as teaching at Pierce College, he began to see patterns in the Beatles that he felt could lead all of us, no matter what we're doing, to business excellence. And so he began to write, not another biography, not another beautiful coffee table book with pictures in it, not a book about their photographs or their fashion or their letters, for goodness sake, but a book about how the Beatles can help all of us achieve our goals and dreams more effectively. And he wrote this great book, The Fab Four Pillars of Impact. And I think it's going to speak to each and every one of us today. So we are so thrilled to welcome to the show the author of this brand new book, Dan Absher. Welcome to the program, Dan.
Thank you, Jude. What a pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
Oh, well, you just had your book release, and you and I were talking pre-show. It was a big success. Your children gave it for you.
Yeah, the my three kids did the book launch party and gave little bit of their memory of what it's like to have a grow up with a dad who's a Beatle nut, and I think I did such a good job with them that they are too. I mean, most of our kids have had Beatles songs in their weddings, um, and of course, you have good material. It's pretty easy to brainwash them when the material's so good. But they enjoyed it. And then my youngest, she led us through an interview at the book launch party, and she did a fantastic job. So it was just a great celebration.
I am just thrilled. And this is really, I mean, I'm proud to say that I have one of the cover quotes on the back of the book, and I very
Yes.
much appreciate you asking me to be a very small part of your journey. I mean, this is exciting and it's a very helpful book. So, you and I both grew up with the Beatles interwoven into our lives. We had Beatles nicknames. I was Jude for Judith, and you became Abby for Absher, and later Abbey Road. Your
Yeah.
dog has been named Ringo. And
Yeah.
every birthday, every wedding, every major event in our life, we mark with Beatles music, and the memories of their songs are tied to our life. But it's not just that. You started observing that there were things that the Beatles did that made them wildly successful as a business organization. So tell us what you mean by wildly successful and what you observed that led you to believe that what they were doing could help other people in business.
I think you've been wildly successful. I mean, not just a leader in your industry, but you're creating enduring success and you're transforming an industry. And the Beatles did that. So they are transformative. And if I've made the mistake a few times lately of overestimating the amount of Beatle knowledge in my audience. So I know people who listen to you have a lot of knowledge, but just to remind people how crazy successful they were in the decade of the 60s in Britain, they had 10 of the 13 biggest selling albums in that decade. And that's transformational in and of itself. But when you hear what the other three albums are, it just blows your mind. It wasn't the Rolling Stones or Herman's Hermits. It was West Side Story, The Sound of Music, and one more Broadway show. Can't remember. So they took what was popular music, what music that would sell, and changed it to rock and roll music. And it was crazy how they transformed the industry. They when they came out, rock and roll was pretty new, and most people thought it was just going to die out soon, and uh, and they were trying to get it more mainstream, and they did it. So wildly successful. They conquered the industry and revolutionized the industry.
Yeah, and you think of all of the changes that they made, little changes like the fact that before the Beatles, you weren't allowed to record a song that was longer than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
After the Beatles, 5 minute song, 8 minute song, 12 minute, heard it through the grapevine. Nobody even blinks about it. When they went into EMI, you had to be there during the day wearing a suit. You see those early pictures in the suit and tie. Pretty soon, they're coming in whenever they feel like coming in,
Yeah.
which is at night when they work the best. And they're changing everything. So, yes, wildly successful. They change small things, big things, everything, everything. So,
Uh,
you're looking at these four men that reached the toppermost of the poppermost, and what you're thinking is what they did can happen for other people. And they're teaching us, if we'll only listen, how to reach our toppermost of the poppermost. So tell us how you came to that and what you came up with that will
yeah.
actually work for people.
Let me start with so much of what they did was just intuitive. They just knew it. Like writing music, they couldn't read music. They just had this inherent knack of understanding it. Well, honestly, the same thing was true with business. They had an understanding of what you needed to do. And as I did more research, the toppermost of the poppermost was the first thing I read decades ago that said, wow, they established a vision really early on. And then I started applying more lessons to business. And so I eventually I created these four pillars. Um, I didn't create them. I boiled them down to a way that people could understand. The first is right people in the right seats. I'll give one little story, and heck, you could probably chime in with stories about them. But right people, right seats. I love the story of John and Paul meeting in 1957 in July, and Paul was impressed with John. They go into St. Peter's Church Hall. You know the story. Paul just wows everybody, takes John's right hand guitar, flips it over, plays it left handed, goes to the piano, plays some Little Richard, mimics him perfectly at the age of 15, by the way. Um, and John was just blown away, but he didn't invite him in right away. He had to have a little come to Jesus meeting with himself. Do I want this guy who's this talented in my band? He might be more talented than and I thought I was the front man. And to his credit, he decided, you know what? What's good for the band is what's important. So he invited him in. So that was just the start of, and so many teams and leaders fail to bring on someone better than they are, smarter than they are. Well, John established that key right off the bat that don't be intimidated by bringing in someone potentially better than you. The second pillar is catalytic vision, and that's the toppermost of the poppermost. I'm a big fan of Jim Collins, who writes a lot of uh, leadership and team building books. He says that the right people is primary, the vision is secondary. I don't completely agree with that. I think it's a chicken or the egg. I don't know if John could have got Paul in if he didn't have the big vision.
Right.
And and until Paul was in, I don't know that they could have achieved that vision. They needed each other to push each other. So, that vision, that toppermost of the poppermost, the chant he'd have them do when they're getting tired and, or are we ever going to make it? Uh, Think about this. Imagine, my kids are grown now, but I'm imagining my 17-year-old child is saying, okay, I'm going to be a rock star. And 5 years later, they're saying, "Yeah, I'm still going to be a rock star." I'm saying, "No, you're done." They did that for 5 years before they got a record contract. So that vision was really strong, and it kept them moving. Um, the next is esprit de corps, a phrase I borrowed from the military. It's just about the spirit of the troops. They had remarkable unity, remarkable camaraderie, the humor, get the ego out of the way. My story on that is when Stu Sutcliffe left the band, they needed a bass guitar player, and George was the lead guitar player. John was not going to be the bass guitar player, and Paul at the time, and Paul bass wasn't the sexy instrument, and Paul just put his ego aside and said, "Okay, I'll do it. I'll learn it." And not only learn it, I'll revolutionize the instrument and become one of the greatest bass guitar players ever. So that's an example of, he didn't really want to do it, but he did it for the team, and it really showed. And the final one I call the magical mystery. Every high performing team, organization, when you look at them, they just have this synergy, this serendipity that moves them forward. The synergy is obvious that, among the Beatles, how when they were together, there was just magic. They were clearly greater than the sum of the parts. But then was the serendipity part, just these lucky accidents. I mean, the easiest one is John leaning his guitar up against an amplifier that was still on, creating all this feedback. And they don't look at it and panic. They go, "Oh, genius. That's going to be the start of I Feel Fine." People ask me a lot of questions about, well, they weren't lucky. They were just really good. I said, well, the thing is, it was their mindset. They looked at things like the guitar out in the amp, not as an obstacle, but how can we make something good out of that? And so if you have that mindset as an organization or a rock band or a team, you find serendipity because you're looking for it.
Yeah. Yeah. You never see something as an end game. It's a challenge to a new game.
Yep, exactly.
Always moving on. Yeah, these are great things. So you really make this usable. It's not just theory. It's something that people, I mean, I'm sure that there are going to be weekend seminars and week-long seminars and people taking this and turning this into a teaching tool because at the end of each Fab Four pillar that you just told us about, you give ways to apply it. You even supply us with a song list that we can listen to from the Beatles that illustrates your point and inspires you to do exactly what you just said. So tell us about the way you've designed it to use it as a teaching tool.
The playlist, I've been a fan of playlists long before they were called playlists. I used to take my records and put them on cassette tapes or 8 track, and create my own blend. So I've been creating playlists my whole life. So that was just a really fun exercise to try to come up with the songs that matched the message of that chapter. My son-in-law is been reading the book, and he said, "Wow, this is great. I go back and listen to these songs. Most of them I know, some I don't. But you mentioned the 2 minute songs back then." He said, "So many of their songs were just little fillers, like 2 minutes." And I said, "Ty, that's the way it was. You couldn't have a song longer than that, or the radio wouldn't play it. They need room for their commercials." So, that's that the playlist was just a fun thing. And I think for Beatle fans or not, it's a way to get to know the Beatles better. And for the Beatle fans, it's fun to reminisce and think about how they apply to the chapter. But the lessons, each chapter has a lesson for a team building exercise or organizational improvement. An example of this that I've used several times. I've been doing these seminars before I wrote the book, or leading classes before I wrote the book. My favorite one is find your inner Beatle. And I outline the personalities of John, Paul, George, and Ringo. And I ask people, which one are you? And invariably, the one that we learn the most from is those who say they're George, because those are the ones who feel they might be underappreciated. They have some talent that's underutilized, and that's what an organization can really learn from. And of course, the second half of my book is about why they fell apart and what all those reasons were. And George being underappreciated was certainly a part of that. And that's something that's really easy for an organization to set up an exercise and solve. And so a person, say you're on a team and you're feeling underappreciated, it's hard to bring that up. But when you're just saying, oh yeah, I feel like George, it opens it up, that conversation. So you can have that conversation in a lot safer environment.
Yeah.
So that's an example. There's those exercises at the end of each chapter.
Apply these tools. That's
Yep.
you're always saying, "Huh, this is what the chapter says. Now let's apply these tools." And
Yep.
it's really, really strong. And you talk about the underappreciated. Well, you get two kinds of underappreciated. You've got John, who always feels he's misunderstood. No one, I think, is on my in my tree. It must be high or low, and I don't feel loved. I don't think anyone loved me, and so I'm going to be famous so that you're going to be sorry you didn't love me. And he's just telling you, this is why I'm doing this because I never had the love I wanted. So he's using it as a motivator. And George is he's letting it really get to him. And I understand why, because you look at 1965, the music of Lennon and McCartney, George and Ringo aren't listed in the credits. Everybody else is. They're not listed at all. And then the Beatles don't go to George's wedding, and there are lots of things. So, there are all kinds of underappreciated, and how you take it and what you do with it. And you just bring all this up. It's such a good book. Well, that's not the only thing that you did. You not only release a book, give us the teaching tools to use this really to change our business, to change our group interaction, to change our relationships with other people, but you also set up the Fab Four Academy. Tell us about that.
Thank you. What started as talking to the publisher, I need to create a vehicle for social media to publicize the book and all that. So started a brainstorming, trying to figure out a fun way to do that. Last June 1st, I started every day releasing a song, a Beatles song or a solo song by a former Beatle. And then I'd give a little backstory and a little message for the day about the song. And I've really enjoyed that. My followers seem to enjoy it. I get messages back, and it's really fun. Example, I didn't on Yoko's birthday. I used one of John's songs, Dear Yoko, and I didn't say it was Yoko's birthday, but a few people actually emailed me and said, "Hey, did you do that because it's Yoko's birthday?" So I do fun things like that. And also every day in the writing, there's an acrostic, which means the first letter of each paragraph spells a message about the song.
Ooh,
So people who listen to this will have a hint. I haven't told very many people that, but it's kind of fun to see what that message is. Some of them you're not going to get because I'll put one of my kids' names in there. Like today is my stepson's birthday, so the acrostic today is Tad, and the song for the day is Hey Bulldog. Each month I have a theme. This month is mental health, and we're exploring the different songs where they talk about mental health in one way or the other. So it's fun for me. I'm not sure how much it's catching on. At the end of the day, when I'm done with the year, it will package up as a nice book. I'll have another book, but I'll have some editing to do. But it's really been fun. So if anybody's interested, it's fab4academy.com. I call it the Daily Words of Wisdom, and there's other promotional things on my website.
do people need to have read the book to use the Fab Four Academy?
No, in fact, you can see information about the book there, but it's really taken a life of its own. It's more about building a community that's sharing their feedback on these songs And I mean, my goal is to get them engaging with each other. I'm getting some engaging with me, but I'd love to start the community in, where they're engaging each other in them.
Okay, so you had your book release. It went great. Tell us about the reception of the book so far.
So far, so good. It's hit the Amazon bestseller list in several categories, which is exciting. It's been one of the top new Beatles releases, although I mean I don't want to downplay it because that's great, but I don't know how many new releases there have been in the last month. But
Oh,
I'll take what I can get. So
there are a lot, believe me.
okay.
I don't know if you follow John Bazzini, he sends out a nightly, well, several sometimes nightly emails updating you on everything that's going on. I cannot tell you the number of new Beatles books that are coming out
Oh,
in the
wow.
next few months alone. So yeah, one of the new books that just came out, if I can pick it up, oh my gosh, is Piers Hemingson's new book, The Beatles in Canada.
I I remember hearing about that. Wow, that's a big book.
It is a beauty. It is a beauty. But I mean, there are books coming out all the time, so don't sell yourself short. It's that is a compliment, really, big time.
Yeah. Well, I was excited. I was also on a podcast, the Beatles Books podcast, which that was an honor to get to be on that too. So um, a few people are hearing about it, so it's good. I'm enjoying it. I love these podcasts. To be surrounded in this community of like-minded Beatle fans is really fun. The people have been so generous and thoughtful. So like you, I appreciate all you've done for me.
Oh,
So
I'm thrilled to do it. And I love, love, love this book. And I mean, it just, guys, if you're thinking, well, I really, I've retired, I'm not in business anymore. Well, you still volunteer, you still work in groups, you still have a family, you still have people you interact with. Some are easy to interact with, some are not. And this is, if you're a George and you're feeling underappreciated, or you're a John and you've for all your life felt unappreciated, and you want to do a better job of managing that, or I mean, it speaks to everyone, doesn't it, Dan?
yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, whether you're actively, in business or, I mean, it applies to families, raising a family, I mean, it's, teaching how to build a team, how to build a family, how to build a group. And not to mention that it teaches about the Beatles, which is so much fun. And so many people know, sort of the big picture, but they don't know a lot of these details, which are fascinating. So I do it in a way that hopefully is fun. It's not a multi-volume history. It's not really a history of the Beatles, but you do get a good chunk of their history in an abbreviated form. So I I think it should appeal to both Beatle fans and non-Beatle fans to as a fun way to learn it. And I'll add, and I know you're an advocate for this. The reason the Beatles are so interesting is they center their message on love and peace. I mean, you don't have to be a jerk to create a successful team or organization. You can center it on peace and love. You can center it on good principles and be successful.
Yeah.
So that's really my message. I hope people get out of it.
Well, where can people get the book and how can they follow you on social media?
Yeah, it's fab4academy.com is the website, and at Fab4Academy, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Uh, get the book at Amazon or bookshop.org, or you can come to my website to get the links. So those are ways to get the book.
When they order the book from any of those, will they get a chance to get a signed book if they go to any of those places to order your website, for example?
Boy, that is a good question, and I should correct that. So there is a way to do that. I will figure out how to do that on my website within the next week or so. If people want a signed copy, um, yeah, it's a trick, and I know you're better at that than I am.
I just PayPal sends me all my orders. They email
Yeah,
my occurs to me. And so but I ship, and you probably have someone that ships for you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, guys, I highly recommend this. Um, as I said a few minutes ago, like I've reached my end with the fighting. We've got to find a way to get along. And I think this is a good read for everybody. How to take what you're given and turn it into something magical. These boys were from Liverpool. They called them Liverpool Yobs because they were from the worst part of town. And someone even told, if you watch Mark Lewison's Evolver 62, he says they told Brian straight up, these boys are never going to get anywhere from because they're from Liverpool. All of the odds were against them. They were young. George was very young. They just did not have any music training, everything. And yet, look what happened, you know. We can turn all this stuff around. And I think a good way to start is with the Fab Four Academy and definitely get the Fab Four Pillars of Impact and add it to your life because it is a great book. Well, the last thing we always ask everyone on this show is, what's your favorite John Lennon quote? And it can be from the lyrics, something he said, anything.
Well, I've enjoyed thinking about this. You've already quoted from my favorite song, Strawberry Fields, um, but I will say my favorite quote comes from All You Need Is Love. He says, "No one you can save that can't be saved. Nothing you can do, but you can learn how to be you in time. It's easy. All you need is love." And I love that quote because I think a lot of people misunderstand that song. They think it's about, you know, pie in the sky, all you need is love and everything's going to be great. No, it's a lot deeper than that. He's saying in time, if you get love, you can learn how to be you. You can be yourself. You may not be able to do all this other stuff, but what's important, you can learn how to be you. And I love that message. And coming from John, who's struggled with a tough childhood, to be that perceptive is amazing. And then I got to say, in about this song, the fact that they've just finished Sergeant Pepper's, they get challenged to do a song for the one world broadcast that 400 to 700 million people are going to watch, and they come up with that song. It tells you a lot about what message they wanted the world to hear, and just the competition between John and Paul, who's going to get that song to come up with a masterpiece that quickly, is just a beautiful part of their story. So
Yeah.
that's what I picked. I love that song.
Yeah, and that's another whole thing that you cover in Fab Four Pillars of Impact is the competition and how you work with that and how you
Yeah.
turn that into something positive. So it's all in there, guys. I think you're really sincerely going to enjoy it. And I want to say, because I sometimes forget to say this, that Tell Me Why is broadcast on Beatles Arama Radio every Sunday night at 6 and every Wednesday evening at 6. And coming up in the month of April, you will be able to hear this program. You'll be able to hear Dan talking about his book and about the Fab Four Academy on Beatles Radio. So we hope that you will join us there and support Beatles Radio. So thank you, Dan, for being here. And thank you for writing such an inspiring book. We do appreciate it.
Thank you, Jude, and thank you for all of your John Lennon books that enlighten the world on the deep knowledge of you have of John Lennon. So I appreciate that.
Well, I thank you all for joining us, and we will be back soon in April. We'll be talking with Piers Hemmingson with a book that's even heavier than mine, which I didn't think could be done, or Chuck Gunderson's. And we'll be talking with the lovely Helen Anderson, who is at Liverpool College of Art when John was there and was his best female mate. You know, Stu was there, Bill Harry was there, but Helen was his best female mate. So join us then too. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Dan. And to
See you, Jude.
everyone out there, ta and shine on.